Morning, everyone. This videos will be about Wave 5 playtesting, overall thoughts, not necessarily specific to all the Gremlin models. I did my 6 videos reviewing those, and, you know, I recorded them all pretty close together, and there's a lot of similar themes that I talk about in all of them. The biggest one being how I don't feel like a lot of the models compare to what's out there now. And in talking with my friends who also play high level Malifaux, um, and I hear them complain about Gremlins every day, it seems like. It just it got me thinking about making new models and playtesting and all that. First off, let's start with Wave 5 as a whole and my thoughts on every faction getting 5 to 6 new models. I'm not too much a fan. I think I've been pretty clear about that on the boards, and just I think I've shit talked it in videos a couple times. I know it's a business thing. I get it. They need to make money. Um, from a game perspective, I don't think it is that great of an idea. At least from a upper level competitive one. I know they don't just cater to the competitive people, but I just don't like the new models being added. Uh, It could be because power creep. Some of it's just because I think there's other problems in the game that I'd rather see fixed than a new model. Uh, it gets harder and harder to balance, and you can take a game which is perfectly good tournament game and then kind of almost mess it up by adding too much too fast. Weird is not a big company for what I know. I know the one designer just left. Blah blah. Open playtesting I know they had a closed playtesting as well because some of my friends were in it. Um, it has its good and its bad. Uh, I do kind of like when the company takes the responsibility for everything, but at the same time, being a small company, you also have to make sure that your company or whoever's playtesting, if you do open playtesting, is actually good enough at the game to make suggestions that are going to affect the game in a positive way. I did not do beta playtesting. I did not even attempt to try. I'm not that interested in it. I'm probably, I don't know, I don't think it's a pot calling kettle black, but as much as I say we need good players to playtest to make sure everything's okay, I'm also a good player who says I don't want to do it because it's not helping me get better. Um, and I will say I'm more open to playtesting in this open playtest because I believe, from what I've heard, these cards are pretty different from what they were in the beta. And it seemed like cards changed a ton in the beta, and these are pretty close to what they're going to be. They're obviously going to take opinions and change some stuff, but I've heard there were some drastic changes from the last set. And that kind of feels where I don't get that many games a week, so playing, you know, my only game a week with a model that's clearly going to get changed because it's too overpowered or too stupidly written doesn't really entice me. Being at the point, I was also preparing for ITC, so after ITC, I plan on trying some games with these. I don't know how many I'll get or how I'm going to even use them properly because I just that's a whole okay. I'll get to that. So I like open playtesting. A big problem I've heard is Gremlin forums specifically were very light on people and very light on people that seemed to know what they were doing. It's great to get all kinds of people playtesting, but if you and your opponents aren't good, which is fine, you're allowed to play and playtest. It the feedback can almost be worse. Like that's the thing that's kind of hard. Aaron has to be able to sift through who actually has good feedback and who is just like two people playing who kind of have no idea what they're doing, and then their feedback is kind of like, oh, this is not like if you see a guy that takes like Ma with like 8 bushwhackers, are they rare 3? Anyway, you know what I mean? He takes like 3 bushwhackers, and then he takes like 3 wrestlers, and then he writes his report against I don't know some stupid list that, I don't know, some Lucius list with some stupid shit in it. Like, that is unhelpful. Like, that does not feel helpful to me. That's not high level Malifaux. That's not what's actually going to happen in the world. And that's not going to give you the answers you need. Now, you can get feels for model, but then you'll have that, like, the Wrestler's the biggest one, for my opinion. You're going to have that guy who his model started perfectly, like, next to a ski marker, and he had a perfect charge lane, and he charged a master, and his buddy was there, and he fucking hit, like, Severe or Red Joker and did, like, 15 damage in a charge somehow, right? And then he's going to be like, Wrestler's great. And I'm going to be like, all right, that was pretty poorly done on your opponent's part, or your, the setup. So, and I'm not in the playtest forums. I mean, I read some things people say, but I don't know. I'm worried about that. Luckily, what I've seen from I haven't read the other cards for other factions. I probably should at some point. I'll do it later. Maybe on the way to ITC on the plane ride. I don't know. The Gremlin cards are fine, I guess. They're not going to change anything. I think you might even be better. Other than following Piglet who you can summon, I think you might be better if you just forget they're there and play normally. You'd probably do better in top-end tournaments. But I guess the question comes, is that good for the game? Is that bad for the game? And I think Gremlins specifically, it can be very difficult to balance, and I think even Aaron has mentioned this. It's hard with Reckless. Like, and my friends were coming up with ways to fix Reckless, whether it's you get fast, then you get slow, whether it does more damage, or all this, like, ways to fix Reckless, or just remove it, right? And to me, if you look at Gremlins as a whole now, the big problem, like, is internally, it's a big problem. Externally, it's, I want to say, less of a problem, but they're going to complain about it. Gremlins aren't winning every event in the world, first off. Maybe they'll start winning every event in the world. I mean, I play well with them, but there's rarely someone else at the tournaments I go to that's a Gremlin player that's, like, doing, like, shockingly. Oh, no, Josh as well. Okay, there's a couple of us, but we've all been, like, good Warhammer players. It's not like this big surprise of, like, noobs coming out with Gremlins and crushing everybody, right? So, as a faction, it feels like Gremlins are doing fine. Now, I will concede that what I find to be the best Gremlin stuff, a lot of people aren't playing to, like, the highest level or very high level, or a lot of people like playing it. Like, I think if every Gremlin player ran like Sommer, and I think the Sommer the right way, it might cause a little more issues. But a lot of people run random shit with like Ophelias and stuff, and that's all well and good. Point being was, it's not like they're so broken that everybody is winning with them, right? So I think we can agree on that. So even everybody, and me, who runs all top level Gremlin stuff, I don't like running shitty stuff. It's still a competition. It's not like I'm just wiping the floor like sometimes that happened in Warhammer. Some armies were just so good, even the worst players could win with them. Look at Jacob Brandon. That being said, internally, there is a huge problem with Gremlins. And I don't really have a good solution, but, these models really show that problem, because if you look at my review videos, all I kept saying is, they're not reckless. They're not reckless. Why would I take it? Why would I take it, right? And I think that is just true, right? If you have one model that you can take multiples of, like a lightning bug, let's take, for example, why, if it's hard to make a model where you want to take it over a lightning bug without making it really broken, right? But at the same time, are lightning bugs in and of themselves super broken? I don't think so. I mean, I only take one or two with Sommer, and I rarely take them with anything else. Maybe I should start doing it more. Maybe maybe it'd be better. I'm just thinking to myself now. I guess what I'm trying to say is, you can't, like, build models to stand up to the big models. But I also don't think that the best Gremlin models that make the best crews, like the Trixies, the Berts, the Franks, the Swine Curse, and like the slops and stuff. I can't think of that as a crew. It doesn't feel like it needs to be toned down. I'm trying to think. Bert's really strong. I guess that's what I'm saying is, can you build a model that's as good as a Bert or a Lightning Bug to replace it in some situations without busting Gremlins? But at the same time, all my friends' suggestion is make the good models worse to make these models playable. But then my counter argument is Gremlins aren't good enough, aren't to the level just using their best models to where they're so ridiculous no one can beat them that you need to bring that part down, right? Why do I need to bring the best part down to meet these new models when then overall Gremlins would just be, in my opinion, mediocre? Like, I don't think they'd be a good faction. Like, these models, I don't think the new ones don't lead to anything great in Gremlins. Like, compared to the best models of the other factions. I think that's... So if you take away the best Gremlin models, right? Just take them away and say, all right, we're going to tone them down. So whatever. If you compare the new Gremlin models to models as a whole, I don't think they're anything special. Gremlins tend to have less soulstone costs for some of the abilities they have, but a lot of these new models are like one sniper from dying. Like, seriously, their defense 5, 6 wounds. That's for 7 stones. That is not, they're not survivable. And the way Malifaux works, I keep like thinking deeper or trying to think deeper, like just think ahead, different ways about Malifaux, and you know, something that I think comes up is Malifaux. If you're either a really good tank, surviving is really big in Malifaux. This sounds stupid, but think of it this way: you are almost every model except 3-headed fight at like 100% until that last wound is taken, right? So an unlucky Black Joker, an unlucky Flip, or something. And when I say unlucky, it could be unlucky. If you survive with one wound, it's huge. If you haven't activated yet, even if you have, because there's a chance that you survive till next turn, because that's the only model they can hit you with, and then you get to swing back before them, right? So every time you survive with like one wound, it can be devastating to the enemy. On the same note, so if you can survive, it's huge. On the same note, if you are too easy to kill and you don't have a way to, like, you just die in like 2 hits or 1 hit, your use is very limited because of that. But you can't make something too glass cannon-y sometimes, because the advantage of killing something fully is really big. If you go first and they can't hit you, but you can, like, then if you go first, you come out from a corner and kill them. That's a huge advantage to have. I know that sounded really confusing. It's just, I don't know. There's a lot of things in Malifaux that, despite being very diverse in the cards, a lot of it can be summed down to very, like, it is I go, you go. Every model has 2 to 3 AP, and you're trying to do schemes for the most part. And if it's an interact heavy scheme pool, having so much AP, more AP is better. Which sounds stupid, but like, as I've told before, dropping scheme markers with any model is the same, right? You can't really win if you have 5 models that have 2 AP and you need to drop 3 scheme markers a turn. It's just too much. All that AP, you know, and Ashes and Dust AP is supposed to be worth more, like what he does for it, than a Bayou Gremlin. But if you're just dropping scheme markers, a Bayou Gremlin's AP is 1.5 soul stones versus Ashes and Dust his 3, but it's worth what? 4 1/3, right? So it's like 3 times the value. But then again, you know, if you went even for equal in points, 4 Bayou Gremlins could really not beat Ashes and Dust in a fight. In a scheme off, they might have a chance to beat it. Now, that's not the best example. Maybe a Howard is a better example. Howard versus 4 Bayou Gremlins. Howard will win the fight. Howard will probably lose the Scheme War because I have 8 AP with a chance of, 4 more at any point, and he has 2 plus a nimble. But the game's not all about fighting. But if it was about fighting, I would lose that really badly. But glass cannons can really mess that up because they teeter on, as much as living with 1 wound matters, if you kill the enemy fast enough, they can't hit you back, right? A glowy Burt Jepson coming out from behind something and killing a Howard in 1 round with no retaliation, well, it's just, the swing is so big in that kind of situation. Just the same as if you go in, they live on 1 wound and then kill you back. That's a huge swing because now they have a model alive that you might not have a model to get to. And that's just Malifaux. I mean, that could be just, say, playing well. A lot of people don't do it very well, but thinking about, I don't like to attack things I have no chance of killing, like, very soon. Right? If you have 8 wounds and I have min 3, and I only have 2 attacks, there's a chance I don't go after you if I have nothing else nearby to ever help me. Like little situations like that where I kind of like to guarantee killing a model than leaving 8 things on, like, 1 wound. But I digress. I think this all started off with playtesting into how do you make new models that fit into a faction without making it too overpowered. I don't know. I just think there's too many models now. I mean, somebody made a post about how there's like 56 Gremlin models and how he can't imagine that he doesn't play with 30 or some shit. I don't know. I could play with like 15 models in Gremlins. There's 30. I wish I could make a list off the top of my head right now. Given the masters I play, and albeit I only play, I mean, I could go to a tournament with like 15 models. Most of them being Bayou Gremlins. We'll say 20 models, but like 8 are Bayou Gremlins, and easily crush it, no problem. I mean, other than my multiples, take out multiples and maybe 10 models, 10 different models, and of the 56 or so Gremlin models, and be fine, easily fine. I wouldn't even like miss the other one. I would not even care because I would just have better models with me. So anyone who says that you need all the models, agree. No, there's a big list of Gremlin models you would never need, almost ever. And you take them, you're just hurting it. Like wild boars, gators, bushwhackers, survivors, the emissary. Jeez, that wasn't even that many. Oh, shinobi. You don't need him. Mancha, you don't need. Whiskey Elm, you don't need. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's just a couple right there. Raphael, Rami. You don't need Ophelia. You don't need a lot of the masters. Like, I could go on, but don't try to sell me that the Gremlins are in a great spot. That's an internal problem though, because I don't think there's just one thing you can do. I don't think you can make the models who are weak. Because I will say, the best Gremlin models are good enough to compete, but they're right on that border of being like almost way too good. So I don't think you can bring the worst models up that far, but I also don't think you can just weaken the best models to make the worst models look good. But I still haven't figured out a way to make this Reckless fair. Reckless in and of itself, I think, is a very unfair ability. It's very powerful. It's the only thing that makes Gremlins like really powerful to me. I think without it, Gremlins will suck. If they, I mean, they'd have to be compensated for it somehow. But it's their theme. Their theme is like they're fast. They hurt themselves kind of because they have a lot of the best healing, and that's another big. I think a lot of people's problem with Reckless is, one, the AP is really good, but two, you take more wounds. Like, it's easy to get the wounds back, right? So when Burke Reckless is, as long as you're going to cheat one card, he's pretty much Reckless for free. Lowy Burt Reckless is for free. I think if I had to think of a way to fix Reckless without making it too underpowered, but you'd have to be more willing to give other Gremlins Reckless. This is the thing. Like, if you want me to fix Reckless in my way, you can't just make Reckless worse and then be like, I'm done. Gremlins are fine. No, you have to give more models Reckless so that they can, that's what it is. You're trying to make Reckless a little worse so that most models can have it, as opposed to make Reckless worse just so other models are can compete. It's hard to. Here's my way, and it's not the best way. It's just one of the ways I thought. I thought it might be a little too much bookkeeping, but if you can do Blighted, you can do this. Reckless does 1 wound, and it then puts a condition on you called Reckless or something. I don't know. Reckless +1. Every time you Reckless, you take damage equal to the condition of Reckless +1. +1. Yeah, so the first time you Reckless, you take 1. The second time 2. Third time 3. What can this do for you? 1, healing is still good. If you want to take the 3 wounds with Bert, then go for it. I will say, this could be ridiculous. People could tell me I'm wrong. I would say 2 things. 1, it cannot kill you. No, that'd be no. There's times where I want it to kill you. Maybe that's not. That's fine. I'm trying to think. So let's take a second to think about this. So my idea, if you Reckless 3 times, you take 3 wounds. All right. You can get away with that because maybe first turn you don't need to Reckless, but it makes it end turn if you've been Recklessing all game, you're going to almost die from it. Quote unquote, too tired. This helps a little because one thing that a Maris has an advantage is she can Reckless every turn, and if she's out of the way of schemes, right? If she's just off on her own, then it doesn't matter if she's on 1 wound, nothing's going to kill her. This would give Reckless a chance to kill you. At the same time, I would want something where if you don't Reckless in between, it goes down. Does that make sense? So, if you Reckless 3 turns in a row, 1, 2, 3. If you Reckless turn 1 and 3, it does 1, 0, 1. If you Reckless turn 1, 2, it does 1, 2. You know what I mean? If every subsequent turn you Reckless, you take an extra wound. If you take a break, you take 1. You go back down 1, right? On a turn you didn't Reckless, your Reckless goes down 1. Right? So here's how it would work. Everybody has 0 Reckless to begin with. First time you Reckless, you get +1. The Reckless rule is you take 1 wound plus your Reckless condition, right? And then, at the end of the turn, if the model did not Reckless this turn, lower by 1. That's a very, sadly, complicated rule in my opinion. It's not even that complicated. It's really not. But that would be the rule I would use. Then it's a resource management. And maybe it's too good. But you're taking 3 wounds if you do it twice in a row. 6 wounds if you do it 3 times in a row. That's hard to heal. But now you have to think ahead, being like, am I going to need to do this turn 5? That would hurt Bert. That would hurt Bert a lot. It'd probably hurt Maris a good bit. Because you'd have to wait a turn to Reckless in between. I think that's a fine, and maybe you tweak it, but you're also talking models with wounds that aren't that high, like a Sammy only has 6 wounds. That's the thing, if Sammy had Reckless, right? What makes Bert so good? Dirty Cheater is what really makes Bert so good. Bert's good, period. But Dirty Cheater is a very big part of that, because when you Reckless, you heal it back. A Lightning Bug has 6 wounds. I don't like to Reckless it all the time. If you Reckless 2 or 3 turns in a row, you're 1 hit from dying. You have to be able to play them in a way where they can't really get counterpunched much because they're going to just die really quickly. Or you got to be able to heal them. And Gremlins have a good bit of healing, so that's normally not a huge problem. But Dirty Cheater is a very limiting factor in taking the best Gremlins. You need some sort of healing, is what I'm saying. Like, it's hard to take Trixie without some form of healing for her. It's not impossible, but there's a point where you're like putting, because she wants to Reckless every turn. And she's going to be putting out a lot of damage on herself, like 3 by turn 3. She only has 5 wounds left. I mean, yeah, she can pawn attacks, but that still hurts models. So I always like to have a Dirty Cheater on my high point Reckless models. I think a Taxiderm without Dirty Cheater is pretty subpar. I think if you do something where Reckless takes more wounds, you need to have more Dirty Cheaters. I think it should be rare 3. It'd be probably too powerful then, but like people want to take people's ideas to take away to fix Reckless is always like super detrimental to Gremlins to the point that the faction would be bad, right? Because the only way we compete right now is with our Reckless models. If you can take a crew without a Reckless model, and we won't even count Bayous, and do really well, I applaud you. I mean, I'd like to see somebody win a big tournament without Reckless models. I just don't see it happening. The closest I can get, no, I still need my Lightning Bugs and Slap Haulers for summer, so yeah, good luck with that. It'd be very difficult. Zip maybe could do it. Even Joel Henry likes taxidermists and Berts and stuff. It's just very difficult. Like, and don't give me one-off games because I don't care about that. I'm talking about playing really good people. You really do need Reckless. To do well. So that Reckless idea isn't too bad. I kind of like it. A lot of bookkeeping. It's hard. Maybe you could then start giving Reckless to more models. Because people would be Recklessing less often. Because you couldn't do it 3 turns in a row. Most models would die doing it 3 turns in a row. And then maybe models could start competing. If it was like more of a general thing Gremlins have with Reckless. And then Bayou Gremlins could keep it. You don't need to do Drunken Reckless on Bayou Gremlins because if they ever do it twice in a row, they're at 1 wound. That's just my general opinion there. Gremlins fight in this really small bracket of points, right? They're like, we can say 2 or 3, but it's really 5 to 8. And it's just hard to balance things in that point value. Every point, like, it becomes a big deal because we like to spam is a good idea because we spam some things. Having something on multiple of 3 and 4 is, if you want to take 3 of them, that's a 3 stone difference in that case. That's why Stealth Piglets cannot be 3 stones. They need to. They're the best is their activation control, right? That's their best thing. But I don't think, like, if you look at their card, and they're not worth 3 stones, in my opinion. It would mess with the Pigapole too much. I think it just messes with things too much if they'd be 3 stones. They need to be limited on how many you can have to start with, because that's where they're really fucking people over. And they should probably blow up if they die no matter what. Unless you, like, sacrifice them with a Pigapole. Like, sacrificing, no. But if they are killed, they should probably blow up. So that enemy can, like, push it into your lines, right? And kill it, and then at least do some damage to you. I think that's more fair. The point thing would not be fair to me. People want to talk about global AP. I do think Malifaux works better in a tighter window of activations, so to speak. It doesn't feel fair to have somebody with like 15 and somebody with 5. How do you fix that? Thing is, summoning is rampant in Malifaux. Like, it's not like Malifaux is this game where, let's say X-Wing. You start with like 2 to 8 ships. 8 being like the small super fleet, 2 being like juggernaut ships. But that's a fair game in that sense. But that doesn't happen in Malifaux. What happens is there's tons of things in the game that bring in new models. And there's detriments. They take wounds, they take cards, they take resources, but Nonetheless, getting new models on the board is huge because you effectively are playing with more soul stones, more activations than the enemy. But inherently, you should be weaker to begin with. I do think summoning is fun. I do think it's a little rampant now. Like everything can summon. Every faction feels like it has some sort of summoning. Not that it's always that good, but I think summoning makes the game hard to balance from an activation standpoint because it's easy. It'd be easy to say you can only take max of 10 activations when you build a crew, but how do you play it after activating? And then there's some number. If you said crews can only be 8 models, well, then you really hurt people who totems and stuff. How do you like make it fair that it's not just activate all your models and then I go with my good stuff. The counter to that being, if I want to tell people the counter, I think the best way to play against heavy activation control, because remember my example of 4 Bayou Gremlins versus a Howard, right? 4 Bayou Gremlins are probably going to lose, fighting-wise. They'll win in scheming, right? And one big reason they lose fighting-wise, besides the fact that they just don't do enough damage and terrifying and all that crap, is they can only go one at a time, right? So if they're all standing there and Howard goes first, and Howard's there, only one of them can go before Howard goes, right? And that whole idea of you fight at 100% until you're dead, right? So Howard's going to get to go because one Bayou Gremlin is not going to be able to kill him in one go. Then he goes and he kills like 2 of your models, and then he'll get to go. And now you're down to 1. The same thing is similar in this, right? If he can do 6 stuffed piglets and you have nothing to do, then you're in trouble. But if you put yourself in a situation where for every time a stuffed piglet goes before one of his good things, you are making moves onto one of his better models, then it becomes the other way around where he's fighting with 40 soul stones worth of models, let's just say, because let's say there's 5 stuffed piglets, right? He's fighting with 40 soul stones of models versus your 50 soul stones of models, and he has to activate his good stuff first, because if he doesn't activate Bert, you're going to charge him with Howard and kill him, right? So if you put the pressure on, because if you don't care about going first, like, why do people like the close games are when people like, oh man, if I would have went first, I would have got to go with Bert and kill your model, blah 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 blah, right? If I give you first activation or I take it and just move a stuffed piglet into position, then I probably wasn't in enough pressure to where I need to go first, and I could just use my activation control was wasted. There's been turns where there is so much fighting that my 3 to 5 stuffed piglets were the last things I activated, and they just ran around because I had to go with my good stuff first. I had to like they got me off my chain of doing shitty things, right? I've had games with Sama where my last activations were just moving Bayou Gremlins. Now it's nice when you want to run schemes, and there is power in that. But I think what I'm saying is if you just sit back and they move their 5 stuffed piglets and now you're fucked because you got to move, sometimes you got to take a chance and just be like, I might lose the model, but we're going to get in this thick of things. And we're going to get it going next turn. And that's why I think hard to kill is really good versus Gremlins, but because you can usually survive a little bit of alpha. And now we're in and then there's some trouble because if I have multiple quick targets and you have, let's say I have 5 quick and dirty targets and you have 3 tankier but good targets, well, in a battle of each time you get to activate, it's a lot more important than when I get to activate. Because the same with the Howard example, Howard activates first, he can kill 2 gremlins before they even go. I activate first, I really can't do shit. Now that's a very extreme example of fighting is, but let's take there's 3 models on one side, 5 on the other side. And they're pretty evenly matched fighting wise. If the 3 models get to go first, they get to do 33% of their power before the Gremlins get to go, right? And then when the Gremlin goes, it's now gone with 20% of its power. Then the other guy goes, right? So if they go first, they're going to go with 100% of their power, and Gremlins only get 40% at that point. So if their 100% can take out 2 or 3 models, Gremlins might actually lose a good bit of their power, maybe 40%. They might get to go with 60 versus the 100 of the other. If Gremlins go first, they can still only use 20. When 3 activations are done, after 3 activations, right? So Gremlins 3, the enemy 2. The enemy's gotten 66% of their power. Gremlins have gotten 60%. Right? So they're almost even at that point. What I'm saying is, individually powerful models can be really, really good if you're in the thick of things, because you can take out lesser valued models easily while they can't take you out in one go. And that's why glass cannons like Burke can be an issue, because he is, stone-wise, only 20%. He's maybe 80% of a big model, or maybe even less. Maybe he's 60%. But he can take you down in one round, and then you lose all your power. So if you think of it in like that terms, like trading, right? 2 7-stone models. Okay, here's a good example. 2 6-stone models can equally fight a 12-stone. I know there's examples of no and yes, but let's just say they can, right? But, so let's say if a 6-stone model charges a 12-stone model, the 12-stone takes half its wounds, and the next one will kill it, right? Let's just take that situation to where they're in an isolated, where they're in like a battle arena that they're fighting, right? If the 6-stone crew goes first, it takes the 12 down the half. It'll lose the model back, probably, right? And hopefully they don't lose the model that hasn't gone yet, or else now they're at half and they've killed them before it goes. If they go first, they kill one of the models. You see what I'm saying? Like, the 12-stone almost wins out the situation a lot, depending on who goes first, and obviously little factors there. But there is a value in having naturally strong models versus many little ones. And it becomes apparent when you only get to go one at a time, right? So if you have a million pawns and you're in a deadlock situation and they have all their good shit, well, you can't just waste moves with the pawns, because they're about to hit you with all their good shit at once, and it's not going to matter that you can wait them out. That's my thing here, and I think people need to do that more. And that's a fear for, if you get up in Gremlin's faces, right? If you get up in my Sommer's face, I have like one model that does like a ton of damage. It's Bert and Sommer, right? Masters, I'm gonna put this aside. Otherwise, you're gonna get killed by 1,000 cuts, which is like Bayou Gremlins punching you, slot pollers, all that kind of stuff. But if, like I said, if you get to activate all your good shit first, and you're killing 1 to 2 Gremlins a turn, an activation, depending on what you're doing. Obviously I know how to play the game better than that, but like that really starts to go in your advantage, because as I cut you down, you're not losing any power on any of your models that haven't gone until they're dead. While Gremlins are just easy to kill left and right. So I am losing power because I just die. So that's my counter argument to that kind of style. I feel like I've gone all over the place with this video. I've talked about Wave 5, playtesting, Gremlins, how to beat activation control, Reckless. I don't have too much more to say right now. It's kind of a rambling. In the end, Wave 5 is what it is. It's out there. I can't stop it from being out there. A Gremlin fix will take more than a rule change. It will take a rework of how they want the faction to play. I like them how they are. I know a lot of people don't like playing against them. Reckless is pretty... Reckless breaks a rule, like... Alright, let me go to my little rant about why it's so good. So take 2 models, for example, in front of each other. Just standing like 5 inches apart. If one's slow and one's not, right, let's scale up. So what are your options? If you have 1 AP, and you're standing 5 inches from a model, you can do a range attack, or you can like walk somewhere. If you have 2 AP, you can charge them. You can focus shoot them. Pretty good advantages. It scales. Focus shooting is potentially as much damage as 3 hits, depending on how big your severe is. And a charge is effectively 3 AP because you get to move and do 2 attacks. Now let's put into if you have 1 AP and they have 2 AP, or you have 2, they have 1, whatever, you are at a severe advantage because they can't charge you and you can charge them. If you're at the same AP, you're on equal footing. I mean, then going first can matter, threat ranges, there's all the little things that matter. You both know what could happen, like stuff like that. Adding in the third AP is what really can fuck with it, because it kind of gets away blocking charge lanes, putting things just out of reach. Like, there's a lot of little things that it changes. I mean, the biggest one is you can come out from behind terrain, which is huge. You know, if I start a turn with Bert behind a building and they have an enemy model, right? If the enemy goes first, they can't do shit. If I go first, Bert comes out and charges you and possibly kills you. I think that is what's really strong mixed with the activation control. Because of that situation I was talking about before, yeah, in an isolated instance where you're up in my face and I have to start going with good models early, you might have the advantage because you have higher value models going each activation than me. But on the other hand, since I can come out from behind a building, right, I can wait. That's why a lot of my turns I can like wait with my activations, because you got to set it up so that you have the advantage. Bert standing behind a building versus another enemy, they only have so many options because they can't get to him because they only have 2 AP, but he can easily come out from behind it and kill you. So, not only is it, 1 AP is 1 AP, 2 AP can become basically 3 AP with a charge, 3 AP can basically move charge for just 4 AP, which is not the same multiplier as 2 AP, but when you think about it, when your first AP can basically get you into charge lanes, right? You almost can't even block charge lanes when you have reckless, because you just walk around things, right? There is a nice aspect to Malifaux of being just out of charge. Like, I think 3 AP causes some trouble. A big one is dropping ski markers. One model can do claim jump easily. Being able to drop a ski marker, walk, and drop another ski marker. Should it be a rule that you can only take 1 interact a turn? That'd be an interesting one, wouldn't it? Think about that. You can only interact once a turn. That would hinder reckless a lot. Things like mares would still be good, but in masters would be a little worse because I couldn't drop 2 ski markers a turn. But would it be the fairest? Maybe not. I mean, it wouldn't break. I mean, Gremlins wouldn't suck because of it, but it would stop a lot of the, like, oh, fucking, they have so much AP and it's so valuable. Like, that's why 3 AP is super valuable. That's another reason. They can drop 2 ski markers in a turn. Is it fair that they can walk twice and drop a ski marker? Maybe, but it's when they're on the line and they can go drop, move, drop, that is kind of a pain in the ass. As I said, that wouldn't be a biggest deal, but that's a kind of an interesting rule to put out there. Only interact once a turn. Not too difficult. Once an activation. Like, a model, when it activates, can only interact once. It's really not a hard global rule to put in. It'll affect masters. It'll affect nimble people. I mean, it'll affect more models than just Gremlins, but probably hurt them the most. What else we got? What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the whole 3 AP versus 2. It's just a multiplier. It just makes it's funny. ITC always talks about how much terrain they have versus America. I'm all for it. I hate having snipers have line of sight. They think we all play with like all the snipers and stuff. I think if anything, terrain helps better players, and the only reason I ever get scared is because there's open boards scare the shit out of me. One, I don't take a lot of snipers. I take ranged, but I don't take a lot of snipers. Almost any. I have the pick-a-pult, which doesn't care. And then terrain just helps burden stuff because you hide behind it and then I pop out and kill you. So, I'm all for it. bring on the terrain. And if there's really dense terrain, I'll just shoot my own Bayou Gremlin and blast on you with some. So I can take that. That being said, thanks for listening to me rant. Hopefully there's some good information in there. Let me know what you guys think. I'll be leaving for ITC in 3 days, so I probably won't make a video before then, but I'll have one when I get back talking about how it went. Thanks for listening.